Admiral Sarah Malvec stood on the broad observation deck of the Aurelia Ascendant, her silhouette backlit by the emerald glow of subspace sensors. Outside, stars stretched into smeared lines as faster-than-light vessels surpassed the Empire's own limits of space-time. She'd witnessed panic at outposts, skirmishes at border posts, but never an incursion quite like this. "Report status," she ordered, voice calm but taut. Lieutenant Torrin Fisk, perched at the central console, glanced up. His gaunt face was pale beneath the holodisplay's light. 16 vessels, Admiral, no transponder signatures, engines read as hydrogen fusion drives, albeit advanced, plated hulls with an emblem we can't trace. Everything about them screams human. Sarah's eyes narrowed. The Empire had catalogued dozens of starfaring races over the past century, yet humans remained a myth, spoken of only in dusty histories and fringe legend. "Verify the emblem." Fisk toggled through layers of magnified sensor scans. Circular crest, concentric rings with a stylized H in the center. Nothing in the Imperial archives matches. It's unsettlingly terrestrial. A low rumble echoed through the deck as the Ascendant's aft thrusters compensator engaged. Sarah pressed her palm to the rail. "Helm, maintain interception course. Bring us within hailing range, but under cloak until we have positive identification." Behind her, a second voice broke the tense quiet. "Admiral, intelligence has reached a critical juncture." Chief of Intelligence Naylor Triss strode forward, datapad in hand. Her usually meticulous uniform was creased, badge askew, a sign. Triss had worked tirelessly through the night. "We've scoured every known human record, Earth, Sol colonies, mythic diaspora logs. There's no official program for transgalactic expansion, no authorized jump lanes to Sector 12. Sarah exhaled. "Then they're here by choice, and clandestine choice at that." She turned, steepling her fingers. "What do we know of their armaments?" Triss tapped a command sequence. A grid of weapons-class signatures filled the holoscreen. Energy rifles of unknown caliber, shield arrays reminiscent of early fleet prototypes, augmented with exotic matter. They've clearly reverse-engineered some of our tech, but their jump drives, sublight speeds are slow. They're vulnerable if we decide to strike. A sharp alarm tone cut through the bridge. Red hazard lights danced across consoles. "Sir, the Council is ordering immediate mobilization. Sensors show Imperial battle cruisers and frigates on alert. Defensive patterns around every inhabited planet in Sector 12 are shifting to intercept. They want a show of force." Sarah's jaw clenched. "Understood. Maintain our position and wait for my order. No hostile action unless they fire first." Her comm light blinked. With a flick she connected. "High Command, this is Ascendant. I have visual on the unknown fleet. Recommend diplomatic approach. No engagement rules unless provoked." Static, then a crisp, icy voice. "Admiral Malvec, by Imperial decree you will intercept and disable. Humanity is a threat to stability. You will comply or face charges of treason." Sarah blinked. The line went dead. She turned to Triss. "They're playing hardball. The Council fears humans more than they value peace." Triss's lips pressed into a thin line. "Rumors suggest that centuries ago humans drove back a rogue AI scourge, lost technology so potent it could threaten even the Empire's core worlds. They call it the Great Turnaround. No records survive, just hushed whispers." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "If that's true, then their arrival isn't accidental. We might owe them an audience before we obliterate them." Her second-in-command, Commander J. Rill, cleared his throat. "Admiral, hailing frequency open. They're broadcasting in classical basic." Sarah nodded. "Patch it through." A moment later, the bridge speakers crackled with a deep, measured voice. "This is Captain Lena Hawk of the United Soul Coalition. We request immediate parley with your highest authority. We come in peace." Sarah closed her eyes, steeling. herself. One human ship kept station directly ahead, their flagship, its hull gleaming like forged silver. Behind it, 15 others formed a disciplined diamond formation. Silence reigned for a heartbeat longer than any of them dared. Then Sarah spoke, voice echoing with determination. "Very well, Captain Hawk. Prepare to receive our envoy. Any hostile action, and you will regret underestimating the Empire." As the Ascendant powered toward the human armada, Sarah felt a ripple in her core, like a distant tremor before an earthquake. Somewhere in the void, destinies were shifting. And when the nebula of misunderstanding cleared, either peace or war would emerge. And so the die was cast, a silent dance between two civilizations, one shrouded in mystery, the other gripped by fear. The Empire braced for impact, unaware that the arrival of humanity would herald not only panic, but the dawn of a new cosmic order. High atop the citadel of New Valres, in a chamber carved from black obsidian and lit by the cold gleam of artificial starlight, the Imperial Council gathered at the raised circular dais. The chamber's acoustics amplified every breath, every shifting footfall, each councillor a linchpin in the fate of a galaxy. At the head sat Chancellor Zaluri, his violet skin almost luminous beneath the emotive flicker of the emergency holoprojector. Between the curved benches hovered a three-dimensional display of 16 human warships, their sleek silhouettes rotating against a star-field backdrop. The councillors' faces were masks of apprehension. They breach every tenet of our security. "And protocols," thundered Supreme Marshal Gassel Hren, gripping the edge of the dais until his knuckles whitened. The marshal's armor, adorned with medals of 100 conquests, seemed ill-fitting in this setting of debate, yet no one dared question his authority. "How do we defend against enemies we do not understand?" Master of Trade, Jorik Vaughn, draped in saffron silks trimmed with silver, tapped his slender fingers on the armrest. "Think beyond warfare, Marshal," he cautioned. "Their technology, hydrogen fusion cores, gravitational stabilizers, could open new markets for our shipyards, our mining corporations. We could profit beyond imagination." His tone dripped with practiced calm, the gears of commerce always turning. Architect Priya Kalenti, robed in deep teal, studied the projection intently. Her expertise lay in designing habitats that withstood cosmic radiation and particle storms, but she knew little of war. "Or," she interjected softly, "they could overwhelm our defenses before we ever reap those profits. If we misjudge their intentions." She allowed the sentence to trail off, leaving the unspoken consequences to hang like the spectre of defeat. Councillor Darvin Lai, stalwart guardian of the Empire's civilian interests, leaned forward. "Our colonies on Virelia Prime and the Delta Expanse depend on uninterrupted trade routes. Human vessels in these corridors could force us to reroute convoys, impose tariffs, or worse, blockade worlds that lack warp gate infrastructure." Behind the dais, monitors displayed incoming data, sensor readings from Admiral Malvek's blockade line, and intercepted communication snippets. The human fleet was broadcasting invitations to parley, yet their hailing frequencies cycled through increasingly urgent tones. A blinking readout flagged an unusual energy signature, a rapidly expanding antimatter cloud on the edge of uncharted space. "This," said Naila Triss, the chief of intelligence, stepping into the circle of light, "is our greatest leverage." She tapped her datapad, and the hollow projection shifted to reveal a violet-tinged nebula pulsing with raw energy. "We know their sensors reached it first, and their warning saved our outpost on Farstrike 6. If we cooperate, we stabilize that anomaly together. If we refuse, we risk losing worlds." Gassel's eyes flicked to the map. The nebula threatened multiple inhabited sectors, but the humans' willingness to share data suggested sincerity. Yet he scowled. Diplomacy makes us appear weak. Jorik's voice softened with practiced persuasion. Strength is not always shown by drawing swords. Sometimes it lies in forging alliances. Consider, should we snatch their technology by force, we risk damaging it beyond repair or even angering them into open conflict. Trade, by contrast, invites controlled exchange, Priya added, and their terraforming proposals could rescue dying colonies in the Penda system. Imagine turning barren rock into thriving worlds, boosting our agricultural output tenfold. Even Gassel seemed to hesitate at the notion of revitalized territories under his command. Chancellor Zaluri rose, the crystal echoes of his voice drawing the room to silence. "We are at a crossroads," he intoned. "We cannot yet trust them fully, nor can we afford to treat them as enemies. The Empire's legacy is peace through order." He paused, gesturing to the nebula. "Let us extend the hand of cooperation under strict terms. We propose a joint stabilization mission. We send envoys aboard their flagship. They provide full sensor access in return for our political recognition. If at any point they violate protocol, hostilities will commence without further debate." A murmur of assent rose around the chamber. Gassel frowned, but did not object. Naila Triss inclined her head, already logging the Chancellor's proposal. Jorik Vaughan allowed a thin smile. Priya nodded in thoughtful approval. Zaluri gestured, and the hollow projection dissolved. Marshal Hren assembled the Star Legion for a show of presence around the nebula perimeter. Architect Celenti prepare the stabilization schematics, incorporating human data. Master Vaughan draft preliminary trade accords, and Chief Triss prepare envoys for immediate departure. We convene again in 3 standard hours to finalize the treaty. As the councillors filed out, their robes whispering across the polished obsidian floor, Chancellor Zaluri lingered. He stared at the empty dais where human ships once orbited in digital glory. "May the Empire choose wisdom over pride," he murmured, almost to himself. Below the citadel, patrol frigates awakened their engines in synchronized hum, and corridors thrummed with newfound purpose. Somewhere in the void, 16 human vessels adjusted their course toward a fragile accord. Behind them lay centuries of myth. Ahead lay the first tentative step toward unity, or the spark that might ignite a war to end worlds. In the balance hovered the Empire's greatest question. When fear and opportunity collide, which will prevail? The Hall of Mirrors aboard the Imperator's Glory was a breathtaking spectacle. Winged crystalline panels arched overhead, fracturing every beam of starlight into a kaleidoscope of shifting color. Along the walls, slender spires of polished onyx reflected the gathered delegations. Humans in crisp white uniforms and flowing imperial robes of violet and silver. Tension crackled in the air like static before a storm. Emperor Zaluri presided from his crystalline dais, draped in ceremonial finery that glimmered with embedded tech, an ancient symbol of unity between tradition and progress. Around him stood his closest advisors, Chief of Intelligence Naila Triss, Architect Priya Celenti, Master of Trade Jorik Vaughan, and Supreme Marshal Gassel Hren. At the far end of the hall, Captain Lena Hawke stepped forward. She bore no crown or cape, only a simple coalition insignia on her chest and the quiet confidence of someone who had led fleets through the void. Her dark braid swung over one shoulder as she inclined her head to the Emperor. "Your Majesty, honored councillors," Lena began, her voice steady and clear. "On behalf of the United Soul Coalition, I thank you for granting this audience. We come not as conquerors, but as partners in the face of shared peril." Gassel Hren's armored boots clicked across the mirrored floor. "Partnership requires trust. Why should we believe humanity, long untested among the stars, holds knowledge worthy of the Empire's regard? Priya Chalenti answered before Lena could. The stabilization of the Vela anomaly was our first proof. Coalition sensor teams detected a magnetic inversion that threatened 5 inhabited worlds. Imperial scanners failed to map the anomaly's deeper currents, yet your people warned us in time to evacuate and adapt our field generators. Lena inclined her head. Our astrophysicists have decades of experience predicting such phenomena. We use quantum resonant arrays to model chaotic fields in real time. I can grant you full access to our protocols if you will reciprocate with Imperial Warp Gate data for faster deployment. Jorik Vaughn's eyes gleamed. A mutual sharing of data could revolutionize starship navigation. Imagine combining your resonant arrays with our hyperspatial conduits. Travel times could shrink by half, opening new markets across the outer rim. Zaluri raised a slender hand. This is promising, but terms must be precise. Human technology is unbound by our treaties. We must ensure that nothing undermines Imperial security. He swept his gaze across the assembled humans. Captain Hawk, specify precisely what you seek from the Empire. Lena stepped onto a central platform that rose from the hall's floor, drawing all eyes. Holographic schematics bloomed around. A lattice of fusion reactors, terraforming drones, marine bioregenerators. First, she said, we request diplomatic recognition of the United Sol Coalition. Our worlds suffered under rogue AI incursions centuries ago. Only by banding together did we survive the Great Turnaround. Recognition will allow us to establish embassies on key Imperial worlds. Bold, muttered Haren, but he said nothing. Second, Lena continued, we offer terraforming tech capable of converting arid moons and gas giants' floating habitats into self-sustaining ecosystems. In exchange, we request mining rights on designated asteroids to support our own expanding colonies. Triss's eyes flicked to the Emperor. Asteroid contracts must adhere to Imperial labor statutes. We'll need clauses to prevent exploitation. And oversight by Imperial inspectors? Agreed, Lena replied. We welcome your envoys aboard Coalition vessels to verify conditions. Transparency is our priority. Jorik's voice softened. And the Coalition's agricultural yield projections. Your engineered crops could offset famines in the Pender system. Lena nodded. Genome-edited strains that flourish in low-atmosphere environments. Trial kits will be distributed gratis to Imperial farmers. A murmur of approval rippled through the councillors, yet Supreme Marshal Hren still scowled. And what of your fleet's true purpose? You claim peace, yet you arrive armed, capable of siege. How do we trust you won't turn those weapons against us? Lena met his gaze without flinching. Our defensive postures are designed to deter the same rogue forces that hunted us. You witnessed our shield harmonizers stabilize the Vela anomaly. Without that power at full capacity, we risk collapse at the hands of antimatter storms or artificial intelligences. Our armaments are a necessity, not an offense. Zaluri leaned forward. Then we shall draft a non-aggression pact. Your armaments remain aboard your ships. Ours will not encroach upon yours. Any violation triggers immediate sanctions and joint security reviews. Lena offered her hand. We accept these terms. The Assembly's first human Imperial handshake echoed through the Hall of Mirrors like the chiming of a cathedral bell, both fragile and transcendent. As envoys from both sides began to draft clauses and exchange datapads, Priya Chalenti allowed herself a rare smile. Outside, through the hall's transparent end wall, the human fleet drifted in disciplined formation beside Imperial cruisers, no longer opposing armadas, but a combined fleet on the threshold of something unprecedented. Yet, in the corner of the Grand Chamber, Chief Triss's face remained inscrutable. She accessed a private channel and murmured to an unseen operative, "Track their quantum signatures. We need to confirm if they match conventional human manufacturing or something else entirely." Unseen by diplomats, the seeds of doubt had already been sown. But for this moment, hope reigned. Two civilizations, once separated by myth and fear, had taken their first tentative steps across the negotiation table, and toward a future none could yet predict. The council chamber had emptied hours ago, but Emperor Zaluri lingered beneath the vaulted ceiling of the Hall of Mirrors. Crystal light fractured around him, casting prismed reflections across the polished floor. Beside him, the final treaty glowed on a hovering hollow scroll. The sole imperial accord, a pact of shared technology, trade rights, and mutual defense. At his side, Chancellor Naila Triss broke the hush. "The stabilization mission is complete, Your Majesty. Both fleets worked in harmony to realign the Vela anomaly's magnetic currents. Imperial field generators, bolstered by coalition resonance arrays, held the nebula stable. No worlds lost, no civilian lives harmed." Zaluri's violet eyes gleamed with relief. They honored every term, then. He turned toward the transparent port window that framed the joint fleet beyond the station. Imperial dreadnoughts floated alongside coalition cruisers, their hulls linked by energy tethers and data conduits, their joint presence a testament to what both could achieve together. Triss nodded. "Human engineers have already begun configuring terraforming drones for the Penda system, and preliminary warp gate designs are in transit to our shipyards. Trade proposals are drafted, mining rights allocated. The only outstanding concern is their escorting of envoy ships through our territorial scan zones without Imperial oversight." Zaluri allowed a faint smile. "A minor oversight. We'll grant them limited autonomy in designated corridors. Under the supervision of joint patrols, it shows good faith. Below the station, docking bays hummed with activity. Coalition envoys disembarked to inspect mining facilities. Imperial scientists boarded human labs to learn quantum-resonant modeling. Traders negotiated deals that would flow flora and ore across star lanes never before conceived. But not all were convinced the alliance would last. In the secluded alcove of the Citadel, Supreme Marshal Gassel Hren confronted Chancellor Vaughan. "You've bound us to these humans with promises of profit and protection," he growled, "and I've yet to see a single benefit that outweighs the risk of lean, unpredictable newcomers wielding our secrets." Vaughan's expression was calm, almost amused. "Marshal, even the greatest risk contains opportunity. Their crops alone could save Virelia Prime's starving colonies, and when their weighted alloys enter our shipyards, our warships will be faster, stronger. We fortify our empire, even as we share the burden of protectorship." Gassel's jaw clenched, but before he could reply, Vaughan tapped a communicator. A hologram flickered to life, Captain Lena Hawk standing aboard the Stellar Dawn amid a cluster of human officers. "Marshal," her voice conveyed both respect and firmness, "your probes of our jump drive cores have revealed a minor calibration discrepancy. If adjusted, they'll integrate seamlessly with Imperial warp gate interfaces. Our engineers are ready to assist." The Marshal hesitated, then bowed his head. "Very well, I'll authorize the transfer." Back in the Hall of Mirrors, Zaluri completed the final signatures on the treaty. He pressed his palm to the hollow scroll. It dissolved into a cascade of light, reforming into a single emblem, the interlocking sigils of the Empire and the Coalition. "Let this stand as proof," he declared, "that fear need not lead to war, and that even the greatest civilization can grow stronger through trust." Lena Hawk stepped forward once more, having been invited to witness the ratification. Zaluri offered her a ceremonial quill, an artifact from his private collection, centuries old. She smiled as she inscribed her name alongside his. A ripple of applause echoed through the chamber. Imperial guards lowered their weapons. Coalition Marines relaxed their stances. In that moment, two once distant civilizations stood united. Later, in the quiet of his private study, Emperor Zaluri reflected on the journey they had taken, from panic and brinkmanship to partnership and promise. He activated a private channel to Chief Triss. Naylor, ensure our intelligence divisions continue monitoring coalition patterns. We cannot afford blind spots. Triss inclined her head. Of course, Your Majesty. But I believe our greatest strength lies not in watchfulness, but in collaboration. If we discover genuine threats, we'll face them together. Zaluri allowed himself a soft laugh, a sentiment unheard of in my youth. The Empire has chosen wisely. Beyond the station's walls, the joint fleet slipped silently back into the void, no longer adversaries, but stewards of a new era. Stars gleamed against the canvas of space as if heralding the dawn of unprecedented possibility. And in the hearts of billions, imperial and human alike, a spark ignited, the belief that even amid the cold expanse of the galaxy, hope could bind the unlikeliest allies and shape the course of history.